So Star Wars Jedi Survivor is finally here. I've been playing it, maybe you've been playing it. Either way, let's get stuck in. After such a hyped and long wait for this game to arrive, I downloaded the hefty 130GB beast and delved straight in. Sadly, but not too unexpectedly, the most noticeable and consistent thing that presented itself was the stuttering and cursed frame drops. It was certainly more of an issue in cutscenes rather than gameplay, thankfully, but consistent enough to be a pain throughout. In fact, at one point the stuttering was so bad that I and one of the gonk droids managed to wedge ourselves inside a small crevice, unable to escape. Well, I managed to squeeze out and decided to lower the graphics settings down to medium in hopes that in the meantime the developers are working hard on those sorely needed patches to fix the game. I mean, medium still had its share of frame drops of course, but even more annoyingly, it seems to have become standard practice in big games these days to expect a short wait after launch for these types of issues to be resolved. So just 30 hours in, I've managed to meet and greet much of the local fauna. I've flown Reltus across the plains, ridden Neckos back and forth, and even helped this big angry bastard scratch an unreachable itch. But did I get a thanks? No. I was actually quite surprised by how much animal murder was in the game, to be honest. Hey, it's all XP in the end though, right? I also got to meet and gather up a wonderful group of people on my travels and had the honour of housing them all inside my cantina, where they can never leave. Yes, quite literally, they are stuck here in my little home base on Kobo to offer me dialogue, quests, trade options and games of holotactics. Yes, holotactics was first seen in A New Hope but brought vividly to life as a minigame here. Enemies come in waves and each round you get to spend up to a certain amount of points by choosing which units to place on the board. You press begin and watch the randomness unfold.
We cannot do.
I met the Bedlam Raiders, a nice bunch even if they are after my bounty, much friendlier than most of the wildlife I've encountered thus far though. I even met a really old one-armed Jedi. Long story, I don't want to spoil it for you, but I get the feeling he doesn't like gingers very much.
You cannot win. Too easy.
Ooh, before we continue, if you did fancy doing me a huge solid and smashing that subscribe button, it will help me grow this channel and will also increase my happiness level. Thank you. Coruscant, as we've never seen it before, way down at level 2046 of the underbelly of this unimaginably vast city planet. This is where our journey begins, and what a way to start. The world building in the Star Wars universe must have been a dream come true for the level designers over at Respawn, and aside from the Jedi hating inhabitants, they certainly did everything they could to make me feel right at home in the lower levels of Coruscant. From the mechanical rumbling of the city's underbelly, airspeeders whizzing by and vented smoke effects lit up by neon lights all set the scene well enough for me to say, yeah, this is Star Wars alright. It's first here on Coruscant that you will get a real taste for the kind of athletic exploration and jumping puzzles you will need to traverse to progress through the game. A new addition to the game is the Ascension cable. It allows you to reach even further away places and works in perfect harmony with force jumping to get exactly where you need to go in a smooth style. There are also lots of optional detours for those in search of secret loot, XP and force boosts as well. Anything you miss? No problem, just come back later. As seems to be the theme on Kobo, many of the areas are locked off and designed for you to return to later in the game with the required skills to access them. And I'm pretty sure you can return to any planet you decide to visit in the game. Speaking of Kobo though, it's safe to say we will spend most of our time on this planet. Our base of operations is here and much of the map is locked at the start as I said, and the story hints heavily at tragic events that unfolded here during the time of the High Republic. Many hidden passages lead to ancient ruins of that era, some of which appear to be still fully functional. Just on a side note though, I love how rich and captivating the story has been in just the 30 hours I've played, and I get a sense that I'm only on the halfway mark story-wise. Going back to Kobo though, after crash landing here and a lot of exploration to get my bearings, we finally stumble upon Ramblers Reach Outpost, the place we make our home, and this was the part that hit home and reminded me of why I love playing these types of games. As I approached the entrance into the small outpost, the game suddenly felt like it just opened up and I was instantly reminded of how I felt when playing Red Dead Redemption 2. It was that moment after finishing the prologue and setting up your first camp location, just taking a good look around at the vast open world and feeling a real sense of adventure to come.
We've got an intruder here. Stop with the tricks.
With all the treats Jedi Survivor has to offer, the real meat and potatoes of the game is what we're all looking forward to, the lightsaber combat. Fallen Order was fun, it was new and exciting, but it had many limitations, as we can now see with hindsight. It feels like they've had a real chance with time and feedback to improve the combat system drastically. I played with a keyboard and mouse, and it took me some time before I got the hang of the controls. I would waste so many opportunities showing off my flash moves with the saber, or using force powers at the wrong moments, causing me to constantly lose precious health before I realised this was not the way. Eventually I figured out that the core of the fighting mechanics was all in the blocking. This is what enables you to defeat tough foes or groups of enemies. You have an upgradable stamina bar which you need to be mindful of in case it depletes. However, successful blocks will quickly break down an opponent's stagger bar. When this happens, you can either trigger a kill animation, which will make you invulnerable for its duration, or use the time to do several other things like deflecting blaster bolts back at the shooter, using force powers for some crowd control, or retreating to pop a well-needed health stim. There are 5 difficulty levels to choose from. I went with the 4th, Jedi Master, which is the second from the highest. Some of the bosses on this difficulty made me re-evaluate if I was even worthy of the title Jedi at all. However, I finally learned that all the bosses I encountered so far could, with some practice, be defeated easily enough just by learning to time the blocks, depleting the enemy's stagger bar and then counter-attacking in any number of ways. Then simply rinse and repeat until the traumatic experience is over. Sounds basic enough to you pro gamers out there, I know, but just understanding these fundamental tactics with discipline really pave the way to absolutely destroying any large gathering of enemies, and most importantly, looking good whilst doing it. For the first 20 hours I mostly used the dual blade and double bladed staff lightsaber styles. Each stance has its own skill tree, improving or adding new moves to your arsenal. The dual-bladed stance offers a little more damage than a double-bladed staff does, although the staff is quick and great for crowd control. Both styles look fantastic, and I look forward to fully upgrading them to use all the moves they offer. For now I prefer the dual blades just because it's effective enough against single targets, not too bad with groups either, and is refreshing to play. I mean, honestly, it hasn't been overused like some of the other saber styles we've seen. I did unlock the crossguard stance about 25 hours in, and although you might not want to use it against large groups, boy does it pack a punch. It's slow, but if you time your moves well and block when needed, it drains enemies down completely and deals an immense amount of damage. I mean, I loved it, so I've decided to invest all my future points in this stance to have access to all the combos as quickly as possible. The blaster stance, I have to say, wasn't for me. I should toy around with it a little bit more just to get used to it, but right out of the box it didn't do anything for me. I mean, the saber moves are pretty basic, nothing special, and you have to keep striking the enemies to charge up your blaster ammo. I think loving 3 out of the 5 stances, especially when you can only carry 2 at any time, is a good enough result for me, to be honest. We still have the classic push and pull force powers, but some of the new additions include force lift, force slam, confuse, force sight, taming beasts to use as mounts, and even the classic Jedi mind trick. The traditional push and pull powers have been bolstered magnificently at higher unlocks to cripple large numbers of enemies instead of targeting one individual whilst getting shot from all sides at the same time. As you grow in skill, investing points in all areas, the saber abilities and the force powers complement each other well. The more you improve, as does the grace of your combat. I got a lot of joy from confusing the weaker enemies and making them attack each other. A nice little trick before jumping into battle against overwhelming odds, I'd say. As with all force powers, they can be upgraded for greater effect as well. Well, okay, jump on your speeder and let's all head on over to everything you can customise. The workbench allows you to change the look of your lightsaber and BD1. This was probably at the bottom of my list of things to do, but after seeing the amount of different and amazingly designed skins on offer, I found myself constantly checking back in once I had a full set to swap out. As for the outfits and hairstyles available for Cal, this can be done via the main menu at any time. This was the icing on the cake, and I was very happy at how far they went with it. I settled for the headband look in terms of hairstyles, but I'm looking forward to finding more suitable clothing sets. I'm just super glad they abandoned the whole poncho thing, not sure what that was all about, to be honest. Meditation point locations are, as you probably know, very important. They not only let you rest up to replenish those health stims, but also act as a save point in this Souls-like game. Here you can invest skill points into 9 different branches, 5 for the saber stances, 3 for the force, and 1 for survival. I decided to invest heavily into survival quite early on, as I wanted that extra health and survivability whilst I practiced and improved with the combat. Then I decided pretty much to distribute points evenly into my favourite stance, dual saber, as well as a few upgrades in force powers for a bit more effect. I won't go into detail here on what all the skills do, but there are many of them, and it will be a long grind to unlock them all for sure, so happy hunting. Vendors will buy collectibles from you found throughout the world in exchange for unique rewards such as skins, outfits, perk slots and other items. Some are definitely hit or miss, but others are real treasures, so definitely worth keeping your eye out for those. The more I talk about this game, the more I realise there is so much more to it, and still stuff I haven't even found yet. We also have legendary bounties to go after and kill for various rewards. Very similar to what we could do in other games like Assassin's Creed. All of these bounties are essentially mini-bosses with varying difficulties and abilities. So as you can see, there is plenty to do in this game, and I mean plenty. I cannot stress that enough. It is definitely not a short game. You may be in the mood to progress a little story, great. Want to grind some skill points while exploring new areas? Go right ahead. Jedi Survivor lets you take your time and never makes you feel like the story is rushing you. Well, I'm sorry to say, but that's it for now, good people. I'm still taking my time and enjoying the game. I will be posting more videos once I've finished it, and I hope you return. Thank you so much for watching, and see you soon. Take care.
Just a scratch.